Hello, Awakening Souls. It's your contrarian soul guide, Dawn here. And this week on Sovereignty Rising, we're talking about the sixth principle of co-creation, accountability. Now, I know the word accountability doesn't usually make people want to pop the champagne, but for a lot of us, accountability has been twisted into a weapon used to shame us, punish us, or load us up with responsibility for things that were never ours in the first place. But accountability isn't punishment. What if it's liberation? And that's what we're going to dive into today, because this principle is radical self-responsibility, and it is the signature of sovereignty. Welcome to Sovereignty Rising. Ditch the fear, embrace your flame. I'm Dawn Elgin, contrarian soul guide, visionary mystic, and creatrix of practical spiritualism. And this is the space where we strip away the fear, burn the old stories down, and reclaim the power that was never truly lost, just buried. Here, we dive into raw, unfiltered conversations on emotional healing, spiritual awakening, and the art of unlearning everything that keeps you stuck, small, and disconnected from your truth. Together, we rise like phoenixes, flame first, fear last. Let's rise together. Let's get honest. Most of us live on one of two extremes. On one side, we blame, we point the finger at our parents, at our partner, at our boss, at the economy, at Mercury in retrograde, anything and everything other than us. And on the other side, we martyr ourselves. We carry other people's wounds, their mistakes, their bad behavior, like it's our personal penance. We overfunction, overcarry, and we call it love. And both of these things are cages, and both of these give our power away. Here's the truth. Accountability is what stops the blame game and the martyr game. It's the foundation of freedom. When you own what's yours and release what isn't, you stop leaking energy. You stop handing other people the keys to your life. You stop carrying their baggage like a badge of honor. That's why accountability matters. One of the biggest lies we've been told is that accountability means blame. That if you're accountable, you're at fault. No. Accountability does not mean you caused it. It means you're willing to look at your participation in it. You didn't cause your childhood trauma, but as an adult, you're now accountable for how you carry it. You didn't cause your partner to cheat, but you're accountable whether you stay stuck in the story of betrayal for the next 10 years. Accountability is not about taking the fall. It's about reclaiming your authorship. Let me explain. If you've listened to my podcast, you've heard my story. When I was 18 years old, I was married to somebody that turned out to be a psychopath. I was abused physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually. I lost 5 pregnancies, and it was hell. When I was 40, I was given a book by a friend for my 40th birthday, and it was The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. I absolutely loved this book. It was what opened me into Brené Brown's work. It is a major place in my healing. And it was in my 40th year that I started to let go. I began the journey of releasing the shame of being divorced twice, the shame of marrying my first husband. And as I started to release, I did some rituals to help me let go of that story that I was really attached to. I identified as someone who had been abused through my childhood, through my first marriage, through countless other relationships. And although I didn't sit in the victim role, I sat in the survival role, which was the role of the fighting victim. And as I started to become aware of my attachments to my story and notice how they were holding me back, I decided that I didn't want to be that person anymore. I began the journey of releasing. Now, fast forward, and when I'm about 42, 43 years old, I've had an accident, I've had a couple of accidents, I have a brain injury, and now I begin this really deep dive into the awakening, into my journey of surrendering, into answering the questions of who am I? Who do I choose to be? What do I want to create in this world? So as I asked those questions, I came across these principles. Now, here's where this principle came into play for me. When I started to absorb and study this principle of accountability, I became aware that if I wanted to take credit for getting out of my first marriage, then I also needed to take accountability for getting into it. That in no way means that I am responsible for my ex-husband's behavior. It is not my fault that I was beaten, but I am responsible for getting into the relationship, for marrying him, and for staying in there. Even though I can look back and give so much compassion and empathy to that young lady that was in that situation, I can understand how she felt like there was no way out. I can love on her and forgive her and have an incredible amount of compassion and love for her. And I can also take accountability for each of those steps so that I can also take credit for getting the hell out of it. That is the beauty of accountability. When we start taking accountability for our role in something, we get to forgive ourselves. That's why working through Brené Brown's work on shame was so pivotal for me, because I had so much guilt and shame for my past, for my role in each aspect of my past. And I didn't understand that it was never my fault. It was never my burden to carry. But I am accountable for my part in things. Even if I can look back and understand how it happened, I'm still accountable. And in that accountability, I get to have radical compassion. And that's the beautiful thing about radical self-responsibility is we also get to have radical compassion. We get to have radical self-compassion. And that is the path to forgiveness. That is the path to reclaiming our power. That is the path to rising as the sovereign queen that we are meant to be. And if you question this, if you're doubting this, I'm going to go back to the 4 agreements and we look at the second agreement of don't take anything personally. That book was a hard one for me to read in that section. When you've been in an abusive relationship or you've been traumatized as a child, it is hard to not take these things personally because we were there and it happened to us. But when we take a look at it from a different point of view, they were just acting out their pain. They were acting out their drama, their trauma. We just happened to be there. It wasn't personal. If it had been another child, another woman, if it had been someone else, the behavior would have still come because they still hadn't dealt with their pain and their hurt. And that is what spews out at the rest of us. Now, radical responsibility means 2 things. 1, you own what's yours, your choices, your silences, your beliefs, and your reactions. You refuse what's not yours, other people's projections, their wounds, their poor behavior. If you only do one of these, you're still trapped. If you only own your part, you risk collapsing under shame and carrying everyone else's shadows. If you only refuse what's not yours, you end up deflecting and blaming forever. Radical responsibility is both owning what's yours and refusing what's not yours. Accountability is not blame. Accountability is authorship. It is writing your own story. It is, in this story, the princess saves herself. And in saving herself, the queen rises. Look, it is normal and natural for us to take responsibility for other people's poor behavior. You've probably heard me say it before. When we are children, we are taught that if we're good, good things happen. And if we're bad, bad things happen. This is how we make sense of the world, how we can feel safe within the world. So if all of a sudden something bad is happening, somebody's abusing us or treating us poorly or treating somebody else poorly around us, then we assume responsibility for that because we must be a bad person. Otherwise, why would this be happening? But as we grow up, it's our responsibility to release that and give it back. To understand that being a good girl is putting out positive energy into the world. And we are actually given a certain amount of time to explore our humanness, to explore playing and making mistakes. So as a child, we don't hold some crazy karmic debt. It's an opportunity for us to get to know ourselves and to get to know the world that we live in. As we get older, it becomes our responsibility to learn, to gain the wisdom of those experiences and not attach to them. Ego, personality, is our identification with form. So we identify with our bodies. This is who I am. I am a 50-year-old white woman. There is the identification with my form. And then we have the identification with our thoughts, our beliefs, our experiences, which become our personality. And our personality is based off of every single experience we've had up until this moment. If we identify with it, it becomes more solid, more concrete, and it becomes a greater obstacle. As we learn to let go and take responsibility for things, when we learn to have radical accountability, it allows us to continuously look at things from different points of view. Now that I have this wisdom, I can re-look at this experience and see it from a different perspective. I can honor what happened, love on the experience, love on the version of myself that had that experience, and release it. I contain the wisdom. I let that embed in my cells while letting go of the emotional attachments, while letting go of the identity of that experience. That's the walk to freedom. That's what this is all about. It's walking our path back to ourself, self-realization, to realize the perfection, the pure potential that we truly are, and letting go of all of the dramas and traumas, all the BS that makes us think we are anything less than that. Let me give it to you straight. Not everything that happens in your life is your fault, but everything you keep carrying is your responsibility. Every time you say it's their fault, you hand them your power. It is an energetic leak. And every time you say it's my fault, you carry their shadow for them. Again, how much energy does it take to carry that much weight? It's always about energy. It's about our energy, our frequency. Accountability without shame is wisdom. Radical responsibility is the bridge between fate and destiny. Now, with that, let's just take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Practical Spiritualism. Life can look good on the outside, but on the inside, you might be feeling restlessness, heaviness, emptiness, a nagging feeling that something's wrong. And this is why we created Aligned Guidance, a 3-session private coaching package where you can choose from an area of your life to focus on: health, relationships, business, vocation, purpose, your energy body, and spirituality, where you get 3 dedicated sessions to you of channeled aligned guidance to help you bring yourself back to you, back home, where you can gain the clarity on what's holding you back, practical next steps that feel true and aligned, and a lighter, clearer, more confident sense of you. This isn't therapy. This is not another checklist. It is a direct line to divine guidance. For more information, check the show notes. One of the traps we fall into is what I call we thinking. We do this in religion, politics, families, even in healing communities. We hide behind a group because it makes us feel safer. If we all believe in something, then I don't have to take radical responsibility for myself. But sovereignty doesn't grow in we, it grows in I. Accountability is saying to the universe, I choose. I won't blame. I won't hide. I will stay present. I will learn. I will expand. This is sovereignty. This is your power rising up from the depths of your own womb. This is the rebirth of the divine feminine and the harmonization of it with the divine masculine. This is us becoming whole and complete in what we are. We don't need to create it. We just need to reacclimate it. So let's bring this out of your head and into your body. Close your eyes for a moment and just breathe. And ask yourself these 3 questions. Where am I blaming? Where am I carrying what isn't mine? Where am I avoiding what is mine? And then let your body answer. Not your mind, but your body. Now inhale into your heart and anchor in this mantra. I own what's mine and I release what's not. That is embodiment. That is sovereignty in action. Here's the gold. Accountability is not beating yourself up. It's not about punishment. It is about learning. It's about rising. It's about taking every mistake and turning it into wisdom. Every pattern into a spiral upward. Without accountability, cycles repeat, wounds fester, and resentment builds. With accountability, you grow, you expand, and you move from fate to destiny. That's the power of accountability. That is the power that lives within you. So here's what I want to leave you with today. Your mantra for the week. I own what's mine, I release what's not. Without shame, I learn, and without blame, I rise. And your reflection question, where in my life am I still pretending accountability will hurt me when it's actually the very thing that could set me free? Write on it, sit with it, let it crack you open, because accountability is not the end of freedom. It is the absolute beginning. You are not broken. You are not too much. You're remembering who you've always been. And this journey is just getting started. If today's episode lit something in you, hit follow so you don't miss what's coming. And if you're feeling it, leave a review. It helps with more soul-led women find this space. Want to go deeper? Come find me on YouTube, Facebook, our private Facebook community, The Awakening Circle, Instagram, TikTok, or at our website, practicalspiritualismco.com, for all the ways we can rise together. Not to worry, all those links are in our show notes. Until next time, stay sovereign, stay bold, and keep that fire lit.